good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and Kiki, who's not feeling quite so good. She's feeling fine now. She's full of beans, but she's been waking me up early. So, yeah, that's why I wasn't on yesterday, is there was a Kiki issue. A Kiki malfunction. And the Kiki is still slightly malfunctioning, so we might go to the vet today. Yeah, come here, you. Come here, come on over here. Oh, do you want to eat my hand? Yeah. I know. Thanks. Kisses. Thank you. I love you too. No nibbles. Okay, silly girl. Nope, I'm gonna put you out. Come on. Let's go. I'm gonna give her a chew 1 second. Hi, do you want a chew? You got your bone, okay? Settle and chew while I'm done, okay? Stay. Good girl. Go settle and chew. All right, there we go. To set her up with a bone. Oof. Hello, yes, poor pupper just has a irritated GI tract for some reason. You know, puppies. Who knows why. She does love her mama, yes. Oh, thank God for TM with that. I'm with that. For caffeine of all levels, because this is the second day that she's gotten me up, like, way before my, like, wake-up time. But, yeah. Though at least this time it wasn't, like, once at 3 and once at 6. This time was just once at 6. But if she's going to keep this up, I need to start going to bed way earlier. She wakes up around 6:15. We don't get up until 7:15. Makes a big difference for me. Yeah, it's rough. Especially when you have to rush her out into the pouring rain, you know, and then she's got runny stools, so it's like, ugh. Yeah. So yeah. It's just the way. That's the way that things are today. No, I'm gonna actually take her. The problem with Keeks Kuriko is she is a muncher of everything, but the biggest problem is that she likes to drink muddy water. Like, I'm sure it's like she can pick up all sorts of bacteria from that. I don't keep anything right now. If I kept anything, it'd be Albon, because that's what she does, right? She doesn't actually ingest any pieces of stuff, as far as we've been able to tell. Oh, yuck, Kodiak. Yeah, it feels bad. Yeah, she loves mud and she loves standing water, and of course it's got all sorts of crap in it, so... Especially because we have so many wild animals around here. Like, I hate saying that in Silicon Valley. It's so weird to be saying that. But we do. We have skunks and possums and raccoons, oh my. And plus squirrels, rats, mice, you name it. And, you know, there's all sorts of crap. So, yeah. So I'm sure that it's just something like that. And she, yeah. So, blowouts. We'll see. Yesterday, she was being a little bit better. And this morning, she, was better than yesterday, but still bad. So I may just do a vet thing later if I can get a fecal out of her. But yeah, you know how it goes. All right. What is this? Oh, yes, this is that. Pardon me, I still have stuff on my table from last time. All righty. Finishing the fisher. That's what we've got. Fishing in the fisher. Finishing. Yeah. I got Kathy Wapple. I got the new Jolie Scribe because I've always loved her sculpt, and I like that Bobby's a pro at redoing Izzy's older designs. So I got that. I got a few more other things. I'm saving up. I'll have to whip those out. Maybe I'll whip those out later. I kind of took them off the floor because Kiki was on the rampage. I didn't order anything big. And of course I got the freebie 3D print because I wanted to prove David wrong. He was all dubious. About it, as I bet a bunch of people were. And so I showed him Rhonda's video, but he's like, yeah, but they probably sent her the really good ones. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to put a random Reaper order in and get a random one in a blister. And then, that's it. All right, so it's it's 1-to-1 on the tarnished copper, new copper, then a little bit of yellow. Yeah, exactly, Pendrake. It's everything. Right. Yeah. I still like Marika's original version in metal. It was one of the better Marika figures, I think, that we got. But I've always wanted to paint her, and I haven't, so this is an excuse. But yeah, I pretty much just look at the new models and decide, like, okay, what looks fun. And I asked Kathy what color she wanted her hair to be, and she wants her hair to be magenta. So we'll have magenta as one color on Kathy, which should not have surprised me, but I had to ask. She might have had all sorts of crazy things going on. Yeah, and Pupper is just a pupper. She doesn't understand these things. She may never understand these things. Some dogs are just dumb that way. They don't understand the connection because they drink the water and they think, yay, yummy water with lots of flavors. And then much later they get sick and they never make the causality connection. So, I ran into something, by the way. I was talking to David about the OGL debacle. And because he was asking me about the D&D movie, and I mentioned a lot of people seem to be boycotting it. So there's a very interesting article on the Electronic Frontier Foundation that kind of points out that WotC had no legal right to even essentially you could use D&D without getting WotC's permission. You can't actually copyright a rules system. You could copyright your fluff, essentially your fluff is fiction, so it comes under books. So you can copyright Waterdeep. You couldn't write a module based in Waterdeep because Waterdeep is definitely their IP. But it turns out you can't copyright a rule system, which I didn't know. So the only thing the OGL did for anybody was to essentially give them a guarantee that they would not get sued, right? Because WotC could still try to bring litigation against you if you tried to do a D&D product without doing the OGL. If they wanted to, it would be a waste of money, but they could do it. So if you were nervous about that, about getting sued by WotC, then doing the OGL essentially gave you, immunity from that. However, it turns out the OGL also totally bars you from using a lot of stuff that you would otherwise have rights to use. So it's very interesting, and the article is called, maybe I'll post it on my Patreon. It also, by the way, goes on to say that as far as it can tell from the verbiage of the actual OGL, WotC does not, in fact, have the right to revoke it. They're likely to get overturned in court. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's not a good mini to rush. That's for sure. Yeah, exactly. So it allows you that shortcut, but it actually here, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, but it appears that legally, as long as you, the user, upheld your side of the OGL, Wizards can't unilaterally withdraw the value that's offered under the contract. And now they can do it from anybody going forward. So anybody who started after they mentioned revoking it, they could revoke it. But yeah. But yeah, the primary benefit of doing the OGL was that you knew under what terms the Wizards of the Coast would choose, not to sue you. So you could avoid having to prove your fair rights in legal battles, which for a very small company, that could wipe you, right? If you didn't have the money. So it can get very expensive. But yeah, so it's a very interesting article, and the title of the article, if you want to Google it, you might be able to find it here it is. So it's on the Electronic Frontier Foundation, it's EFF, and that's the title. So those guys are pretty up on IP copyright and all that kind of stuff, so I kind of trust what they're saying. You can use the mechanics, actually, as long as the mechanics, Babatuk, are not stated creatively. If it's, this spell makes you invisible, it lasts for 1 hour. You can't copyright that. Somebody can copy those words verbatim. There's nothing creative about that. It is a statement of rules. However, if it's written like, this benefit is given to you by the star totems and da-da-da-da, and that you cannot copy, right? That's product identity. You need to read this article because they're very clear on the rules are not copyrightable. Straight up, period. That's the way it is. Only the creative elements, which is product identity, right? Well, like City of Waterdeep, for example. Those things, World of Eberron, all that. Those are all copyrighted. All the creative fluff on that is copyrighted. You cannot copy Eberron. You cannot copy, Waterdeep or any of the other, or Greyhawk or whatever, But the statement of how a spell works, and in fact the dice mechanics that govern it, are not copyrightable. They could try to sue you, and it would cost you a bunch of money, which is what the OGL was, one would think created to work. Hello, W. This is actually called an elemental Scion, Scion. It's pretty much like a water genie. Yeah, it's like a water elemental. We were working on the air version. There's 4 elements in this box set the Reaper put out for the Kickstarter, and there's the air one, and he is definitely a genie. And then we got Fishy. Fishy's the water version. I'm really fond of Fishy. I think he's working out pretty well. Yes, exactly, Inara. That's on the nose. Mechanics are not copyrighted, which I didn't know that. I thought you could copyright a gaming system, but it turns out you can't. Right, Crows and Bones. Well, yeah, it's just like anything. It's right. You can love a thing, but the person that owns the thing, or the person who created the thing, or the corporation that is running the thing could be kind of dodgy. So yeah, it makes sense that you'd just kind of like put it aside and not want to worry about it. I was just very interested because I didn't know that you. I just need to touch that up. I didn't know that you couldn't do that. Yeah, and it turns out that, you could do that. I mean, that's before that's probably why they did the OGL, right, Ballandar? Because they saw that happening, and they essentially were like, well, if we do this thing, we won't have to litigate, and it also limits what people can do, because if you, agree to use it, that's essentially, you're bound by it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just an interesting article, like I said. Go look it up, or I'll post it on my Discord later. It kind of really shows you what the actual legalities are. Of course, there are gray areas, and that's why we have courts. But apparently, there's also any ambiguity in the phrasing of an agreement like this is typically rules against the court. A court typically rules against the writer of the agreement, not against the user. So again, this is all just could go either way, and most small game companies certainly don't have the money to hold up a lawsuit with WotC, or Hasbro, as the case may be, but I find it very interesting that it's essentially kind of, we all thought it was so cool that they did that, but it turned out they were actually limiting rights, not giving you any right you didn't already have. It's just that they pretty much promised not to sue you over it. That was a lot of russet brown. Okay, lots of russet brown. Right, Inara. Yeah, except it's not, it doesn't really need to be spelled out in court. It's pretty unambiguous according to the FF if you read the article. It's just that it's going to cost you money to litigate it, right? The biggest thing is, as far as revoking it, that's going to need to be spelled out in court. Like, WotC is trying to say it one way, and the court's going to have to decide one way or the other. You're right. That's exactly. But as far as the original document and what it gave rights to, it gave you rights to stuff that's pretty clearly not stuff it can give you rights. Like it created a binding agreement over something that you could have used anyway if you were willing to go to court about it, which most people weren't. So that's why it really wasn't an option, right? Any small D&D company that gets hit with a lawsuit from Hasbro is probably just going to stop. It's probably not going to take it to court, even if they feel like they can win. So. Good intentions. But he was a creative, not a lawyer. Yeah, that makes sense, Babatuk. Right. I'm invoking the spirit of Ed Pugh right now because he's looking down from heaven on this discussion and he is saying good intentions are always punished. It's one of the things that Ed... No good deed goes unpunished. That's one of the things he always said to me. Yeah, paint. Sorry, Inara. I thought it was interesting. Many people may not know the legality of the thing, and this article spells it out very clearly, so... I've always been interested in law, but I knew better than to try to become a lawyer because my sense of right and wrong is too developed. So, all right, let's get some liner so we can shade this thing. Oh, okay, we've got a little bit of copper. Yeah, Valendar, pretty much. All right, a little bit of sun yellow, and it doesn't matter what yellow is in your copper. I'm going to remember that I didn't do a full drop this time and just give myself a little bit on my brush. Okay, if I can squeeze it out. Everything is clogged today. What is this? Yeah, it'll be messy no matter what, and they have the money to lose, and many other people don't. That's pretty much what it comes down to. But yes, we'll change this subject. Sorry, I didn't realize you guys were very sensitive about it. I actually thought it was just an interesting legality, as I did not know personally. So we'll get just a little bit of yellow. Just a tiny bit of yellow. We just want to warm it up. Just a little bit. We don't want to make it really orange like we accidentally did last time. I guess I have no feelings about it because I am so very... I guess I've gotten jaded over corporate ridiculousness. Like, nothing surprises me anymore when it comes to corporate self-interest. Nothing. All right, so we're going to pop a little bit more white in that. White, white, white. Or Osirian sand, because that's what I have right by my hand. Hello, Slalom. Slalom, I do not actually have finished on the rings here. The jewelry on the bag here is not done. And I missed part of the copper on the belt back here. And I need to also highlight the leather pouches and do the base. Otherwise, the figure is indeed done. You are correct. But I tend to go done. Like, I tend to finish everything if I'm going to do it, so. So I'm just mixing up my copper colors real quick. And one of the copper colors I mixed up will help me to highlight the leather, so. But yeah, he's getting very done. But I try to finish a model out entirely unless it's so boring and we've spent so much time on it. Like if the basing is really, really boring, then I'll just let it go. And then we'll do one more and we'll do one more highlight. And I'll show you guys my colors. Yeah, pretty much, Kerniko. All right, so the colors we've got. Boop. Mixing up a light here. There we go. And actually, I'm going to bring that up a little bit more orange. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of my yellow. Yeah, for sure, Kornika. Yeah. Yeah, I don't get why they suck so much. Oh, that's a little too yellow. Oh, noes. Oh, noes. We went a little too yellow. I may have to pop more white into that. That's not too bad, actually. I bet I could use that. Where's my white? There it is. Yeah, there are so many companies out there today doing fantastic miniatures that... Yeah, I'm always interested to learn new things about like IP law and copyright law. Probably it's the writer in me. There we go. All right, let's lighten this one up a little bit now. Good. All right, that's about right. So that's where I am as far as my copper. We've got our russet brown. We've got our 50-50 mix of tarnished copper and new copper plus a bit of yellow and white, and white and a bit of yellow plus a little bit of copper. All right. I do need to get the back of this belt done because I keep forgetting that I wanted that central band to be copper. They are not identical. Indeed. One second. There are slight differences. If they're identical, then question the color, the light of the light you were looking at them in. You can clearly see on this one with this light that copper verdigris is lighter and yellower. They are, I don't know about Siren Song because I didn't create Siren Song. And Grindylow with Pathfinder, they do have some close copies of our colors because they're a separate line. You aren't going to find all unique colors in that line because we had to do a black, we had to do a white, we had to do a straightforward red, you know, so you are going to find some colors in Pathfinder that are very, very close. There's a really close match for Void Blue too. But you are going to find stuff in Pathfinder that's a really close match. Like you have to kind of cherry pick in places. They're all different formulaically, like don't get me wrong, but they could be only very slightly different. So when you've got 500 colors, you're going to find that is the case. But just like here, both of these guys have bits of other pigments in it. Mint green is a pure phthalo green with only white. So as far as I don't have mints because it's the one I hate. Mint green. It's one of not the MSP's particular mint green, but mint green the color. I just detest it. I have for a long time, but that's a pure pigment highlight. A little bit more useful. These guys have other pigments mixed into them. Let's see, what do we got? Like I said, I don't know Siren Song because I didn't make that one. Ghostly Moss is darker. Yeah, I don't have again, the Grindylow Blue is a Pathfinder, so I don't have that one. So what you're going to find, Onara, is just that it's really, really close, but there are differences. And sometimes the differences will make a profound effect in your painting because some of those colors are going to have a lot less white than others. And so they may make better or worse highlights depending on what you're trying to do. Yeah, and the plastic bottles are a frosted white, right? So they are going to also change and hide the color a little bit. So the best thing you can do is actually swatch them or put down just drops. A lot of them will dry more different than they look. Yeah, Osirian Sand is unique, so is Asmodeus Red. If the Pathfinder one seems thinner, it probably has less pigment or less white pigment in it. With Pathfinder, we were pretty much like, you have to match this color exactly, and that didn't give me, sometimes that didn't give me color options for coverage. Like, because you can do stuff that will add coverage, but it will shift the color. So when you have to do an exact color match, as I do with a licensed line, or did, then you are gonna run into issues sometimes. So thinner can be less pigment or it can be more pigment. It depends on the pigment. I talked about this actually on Saturday on my stream. Pantone, correct. I had to match Pantones. Yep. Which is very difficult, Big Chimpo, when you're trying to match those colors because the pigments you're using are not the same as the Pantone line uses to match things, like to delineate formulas. So what you have to do is you have to like understand what the Pantone colors, base colors, mixing colors look like. And then you have to figure out with the pigments that you have, how you can reproduce that. Which is a whole different skill set. It's kind of like toward the end, I could look at a color and I could tell you what the CMYK was. because Brian and I had to do that, like we had to essentially set up swatches that would print, right? So I just got so experienced, like staring at a swatch on the screen and adjusting it until it looked like what it was, that I can tell you with pretty close accuracy what the CMYK values of any Reaper Master Series color are going to be. It's kind of ridiculous. Weird specialist skills that you never use anywhere else. So I'm just kind of like stitching in, kind of stippling in a line here. And I'm going to need some more actual tarnished copper because this is just a base. But yeah, whenever you want an exact match for something, Pantone is what you have to reach for. It's the universal. So then essentially we would get the actual Pantone swatch book. I would locate the precise swatch that is approved, and then I would match the dried paint color to that swatch. Usually I would actually paint a tiny bit of the paint over the corner of the swatch, and when it dried, it had to match. So it takes a while. All right, I'm going to mix up some tarnished copper and glaze it over parts of this base coat. I'm going to actually make it a little more solid on some places, though. Hey, Miniatures Den, thanks for the raid. Yeah. So I had to look at the colors that they were, the numbers of the colors that they were asking for when I created Pathfinder, and then we had to purchase another set of swatches, at least one, I remember. Pantone is simply a universally accepted color system that takes pains that its printed swatches are precisely accurate, Cornico. So essentially, when it's the only system on Earth that Pathfinder, the Paizo, could sit at a table with a ring of swatches, choose a swatch, and then I could also buy that swatch, have it be exactly the same, and duplicate that color. So it's a universal system. Grey Wolf, I always mix 1 gallon. When you're multiplying formulas and you know you're going to do at least 2-gallon batches, you don't start smaller. It actually causes, we learned by trial and error that when I first started, I was taught to use quarts, and actually multiplying by 4 to try to get a gallon formula made something that was always inaccurate. So I would start with a gallon formula because the quart bucket's just so little and you just don't have a lot of room to work. So no, I wasn't making small batches. I just ran with it. Like, I got good enough at the end that I could do a first batch in a 1 gallon and nail it. And there were very few samples, but that's like 15 years of experience, you know, to get there, at least 10 years of experience. I would say that, you know, when we trained somebody new in the department while I was there, you would always get a bunch of samples because they just don't have the gut knowledge. They don't understand how the pigments work together. You're going to get some bad batches, but no, not R&D costs when you've got an and. Like I said, I nailed this stuff. There were so few. Like, I think in the entire Pathfinder line, I maybe had to remake 2, maybe 2 colors, tops. Yeah, so this is R&D. This is Riot Boy. This is talking about when I was making the Master Series line, specifically the Pathfinder line, and Paizo, you know, set it up with Pantone. I mean, you get, like, this is why I was the perfect person for that job. Like, yes, it would be a ton of R&D costs with anybody else, Grey Wolf, absolutely. Like, anybody else, if you're creating a new paint line, unless you have a lot of flexibility. Like, okay, let's face it. When Reaper makes a new color nowadays, all they have to do is make sure that it's not an exact duplicate of another color that looks kind of like it. So, but if they had another contract where they had to duplicate Pantone, I'm thinking Ron has to bring me in for that. Like, if he doesn't, then there will be a lot of R&D. But I'm very good with color, and I always have been. So Ed didn't necessarily know it, but he figured it out that he had pretty much the perfect person for that job. There are other people on Earth that could do it, but they it'd be like Wapple could do it, but he's not leaving, his city, his home and his everything to move to Reaper and do the job, right? So at this point, my back gave out, Big Chimpo. I don't think I would go back. I miss it sometimes. What I really miss is getting the idea for a color that we didn't otherwise have and just setting it up and just playing until I nailed a color I really loved. Like Orchid Purple was like that. Some of the last colors that I did for the Kickstarter before I left are some of those colors that I just I want to make this thing. I have this idea for this thing. When you're identifying colors from a Pantone swatch, Riot Boy, usually what you'll have is Pantone will say, this is red number 1 mixed with yellow number 3 mixed with, this green and that black, right? You don't have those exact pigments that Pantone uses. They use a separate system. So in fact, I think it's an ink system. If I'm absolutely, it's weird. Let's put it that way. So first you have to identify that maybe red number 1 is magenta. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not red. That's this cold red, right? So you figure out what's close, and then you have a knowledge of how pigments mix together, if you're me, like what colors shift, like black added to yellow shifts green, magenta added to green shifts blue, things like that. And then you take your system and their system and you kind of creep in on it. You have to start real slow, unless it's really straightforward. If it's black, everybody uses the same lamp black. It's the same thing. And titanium white is the same, right? Not really, Big Chimpo. We had to do that when I had my back problems. Daryl had to come over. But the problem is that you're pretty much you just can't do that. You're paying somebody just to stand there. And Reaper can't afford that. And I would have to move back to Texas from California and leave my husband because David ain't moving to Texas. So that ain't happening. That ain't happening. No, what Ed and I had discussed before, when I had left or shortly thereafter, was that if Reaper needed me to come back and essentially design, to do a design, to design a line or to design an expansion or whatever, if they needed me in my paint design capacity, I'd just arrange to take 2 weeks and come down. Or 1 week, or however long it was going to take, depending on the number of stuff. Right, but I didn't always know that, Shadow Raven. I learned it on the job. I didn't always know, I knew a lot about mixing colors, because I have an art background and I always was good at color, but there were some specific things about pigment interactions that I had to learn. Given that once I had it, it was I had it and I understand. Yeah. So yeah, when you're matching a Pantone, you can't use exactly the same colors they've got, but you've got to kind of learn how your colors, I looked up their colors and I compared them essentially to the pigments I had available. And I figured out, okay, well, to match this blue, then really I want to add a little bit of this to my phthalo blue, right? And I would essentially figure out ways to reach what they reached and coming from a slightly different direction. And I would have to start slow. This is why there was very few R&D fails, is that I know when I'm working with something like that, I need to go real slow. So I would maybe only put in half the pigment that I thought I was going to need, which would give me a pastel, right? But it would give me a pastel that would show me right away if I was off. And I'd be like, okay, so now I'm going to slowly darken this. Oh, I need more blue. I'm going to slowly add in more blue. So it would take a while to formulate the Pathfinder colors that were not straightforward. But it didn't really take that long because I just gotten so accustomed to it at that point. Oh, okay. Actually you don't pick paints, you pick pigments. Or are you talking about, Riot Boy, if you if you're trying to pick a paint from a photograph. For example, I like this photo of a sunset and I want to paint it. So like that's how you, is that your question? Sorry, we were in the middle of talking paint chemistry. I thought you meant that. But it's a little bit harder if you're doing that. I mean, the easiest way to do it is just to get your, like, what's a good picture? Let me grab a picture. All right. So, my bust. So, if you saw a miniature online and you were like, all right, I want to copy that skin tone, the best thing to do is to grab this and to do an eyedropper sample in a graphics program. Do the eyedropper sample, and then once you've got that eyedropper pick, make a panel of it. Just do the fill tool and make a big swatch of it. Then look at your paints and say, okay, what skin tones are close to this? Just kind of hold them up at first and come to the paint that you think is closest. Then swatch that paint and then hold it up and say, all right, maybe this needs to be a little redder. I don't have a paint that matches that, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit of red to it. And then it'll get close enough. Like, you don't need to perfectly match a color to... Yeah, the Power Palette I don't recommend, actually, because it's an older tool, and it doesn't give... I find it often will give not the greatest answers sometimes. It's not even that you're natural with color, it's just that I've been playing with color... I mean, I think what people call natural with color is just that people who have had an interest with color from a very young age. Like, I was playing with colors when I was 3, and I loved mixing, and I loved colors, and I've used color all the time. And when you start out with that when you're 3, because you love colors, and you love painting, and you love colored pencils, you just get, when you get to be 10, people think you're unnatural with it. Because you just play with it so much that you get an understanding of it. Crows, this is, I'm doing on my Patreon, we're doing a $10 tier, thing where I'm mixing everything. So these skin tones are mixed from scratch. It's a red, a yellow, and a blue, plus white. Yeah. So yeah, but that's how I do it. Like, I don't need to usually swatch much because I have kind of an encyclopedic memory of our paint lines. So like, but at this point, like, I can even look at somebody else's model on the internet. Like, I was looking at Darren Hahn's faces. He does great photorealistic faces. And it took me very little effort to realize that he was using like raw sienna for his skin tones, or something that was essentially an equivalent or close, plus maybe magenta for the red, and that's actually very close to what I'm using on this model. So you just get, like, when if you know artist pigments and you use things like the Chimera colors, or you use things like the Scale Color Artists that have artist tube colors in it, that actually shortcuts a lot, because then you have a very short list of what people could possibly use. With Master Series, it's a little harder. But every color in Master Series was mixed using one of 12 pigments. So it's like, or several of 12 pigments, but only 12. So, but yeah, that bust is, we're going to be doing, everybody voted. I had people vote on what hair color they wanted to mix from scratch, and they want me to mix more of a golden blonde. They want to explore blonde for her. So that's great. So we're going to do blonde hair on her, and I'm going to mix it just from Chimera colors or Scale Color. I'll probably show several variants on it. So yeah, my Patreon is painting big. Patreon.com/painting big. And I'm really excited about this Mixing Everything series, because it's playing to my strengths. So we're going to do, after we do her hair, we're going to do leather colors. So I'm going to show you how to mix leather colors as well. Yeah, technically, I guess there's more than 12. There's 12 on the wheel, but then we also have the high-density pigments, so that throws another 3 or 4 in there. And if you count that the black in the liner base is actually more transparent black, then you could throw another one on there with that. So, maybe 16 or 17 at the end, but still, relatively few colors. And to be honest, I talk about this a lot, and so does Rhonda. Like, some of these colors you don't need. Like, understand that some pigment and paint colors are not used for their color, but for their coverage. So like yellow ochre, yellow oxide, right, is used for its coverage. But you can mix a close match to yellow oxide using yellow and red, right? You can using other colors. So honestly, HM Road Dog, what I recommended one person to do on my Patreon was to essentially put all your paints in the closet, choose 2 different reds, 2 or 3 different reds, maybe 2 yellows, you know, a good orange. Just choose a couple of every color, a few good browns, you know, a couple of your favorite skin tones, black and white, walnut maybe, because walnut and brown liner. And then just paint using that. Just paint using that. And decide on color schemes based on those very simple choices. If the number of paints isn't what's doing it, and it's just you can't decide, get a color wheel and learn to use it. Color wheel makes everything so simple for you. Now, some people don't like the color wheel because they're like, no, it's too trite. Like, you don't want to paint, like, I don't want to paint blue and orange. Why would I want to paint something blue and orange? Guess what, guys? This is a blue and orange color scheme. Like, the thing is to realize that a red and green or a yellow and purple or a red, yellow, blue color scheme doesn't have to be just a bright red, bright yellow, bright blue, right? It can be all sorts of things. But this is a blue and orange color scheme. Absolutely it is. It has other stuff in it, but when you look at it, it's primarily blue and the copper and the accents are orange. Yeah, everything has levels of saturation, right, Riot Boy? So just take a color wheel and choose a color. I have a huge, if you're on my Patreon, I've got a huge thing. I have a choosing colors PDF that I did for KublaCon last year. It's like 10 or 12 pages of how to choose colors for your models and ideas. So yes, you also can just do that. You can try to copy somebody else's scheme or an image that you like. I look at flowers and artwork a lot. I go to art galleries and I make a note if I see a color combo I really like. I think I need these rings to be a little bit darker. But yeah. See, I find that, although people are unwilling to do it often, but narrowing your paint down to just the starter set with a few other colors you really love can help you just clear your head. Otherwise, it's going to be decision paralysis every time you look at it. So to put it a little bit differently, your problem may be just that you're having decision paralysis and you need to narrow your options. Or your decision may be that you just don't know what colors you want to use, or, you know, and that's a different thing, right? In which case, then what Kodiak says is actually useful, very useful. You know, if you just don't know where to start, then looking at pictures online and choosing somebody else's color scheme to try to copy is always a good one. But remember that overall, there are very few color schemes in the world. All that varies is what Riot Boy said, is the levels of saturation of the color. Right. I could paint a different blue and orange model that would be completely different, right? I could have varied this a lot. But I chose like these particular blues, right? So but it's so yeah, ask yourself if it's decision fatigue or if it's honestly that just you don't have a starting point. But your starting point, yeah, and your starting point, when you choose those colors, make sure that they're some of your faves, right? Unless you want to challenge yourself and make yourself use a color you haven't used before. But when you are choosing your reds, if you just love blood red and it's your favorite red, make sure it's in there. Choose another red too, you know, to play with, but make sure your favorites are in there and then work with that. Oh. No, if you are good at deciding your main color, all you need is the color wheel. All you need is the color wheel. Probably one of the things you need to do when you've got your main color is understand, like, as was pointed out by Riot Boy, Remember, you don't need the same level of saturation for everything. So like a lot of people will pick a medium red and a medium blue and a medium green, when really they ought to be looking maybe for a bright red and a dark blue, you know, and maybe a light green, right? So remember to vary. This is always why I tell people you got to vary your lights and darks. You've got to have contrast. And so this is the thing that you'd use once you have your main color, by the way. So this triangle and this triangle and then the rectangle and the square. These tell you what other colors go with your main color. If your main color is red and you go for a simple triadic, hold on, let me turn my thing. Probably the one that people are so used to. So, all right, here we go. So yeah, so if you're red, you can go with the triangle and you know that yellow or gold, remember gold is yellow, or blue are going to work. And you could choose just two of these, red and yellow or red and blue. You know, red and gold and black always look fantastic together. Or you can just do all three. You can do the red, yellow, blue, which, do we have one of those right now? I don't think I do. I had a red, yellow, blue. Red, yellow, blue? Anybody? No. Nah, sadly not. Not right now. Oh, well, maybe. Kinda. We went purple, though. She's almost a red, yellow, blue. If the pink was a little bit redder. But it is red violet, so it is technically a red, yellow, blue. So you can go with that. Or you can look at the square or the rectangle. So you could go red, orange with a green and a blue. You could combine these two and go red, orange plus teal. Yeah, it's a super cheap color wheel. Yeah, so... Oh, I missed it. Yeah, plus split complement. Exactly, right. Split complements can be hard. Pick the midtones first, yep. Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Until you figure out what exactly you're painting, then worry about the volume. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you could also do it in the other way around, right? If you love your volumes and you want to do sketch, you could sketch, and then while you're sketching, you could figure out what your colors are. You can do it the other way around. But yeah, it's what works for you, right? Every painter's got a slightly different way to tackle it. I've tackled it both of those ways. I typically don't start a model unless I know what color scheme, at least with the first couple strong colors that I want to do. But yeah. Technically, that's kind of this. Only the greenish color departs from it. Like, if you think about it, we started mostly with that blue, right? But we used a kind of a deep indigo to shade it. And then we added a tiny bit of, like, Osirian sand to create a green with it. And the green here is a mix based on those things. And then the orange is everywhere from copper to the bright coral orange, right? So technically, you could do that, right? Or you could do, do I have... Wait, I hear the puppy moving around. I don't know if she needs me. Or if she's just roaming. She's kind of sick, so I have to keep an eye on her. I'm trying to think if I've got another model. I hear squeaking. I might have to let the pup out. I mean, technically, although we're using the same colors, we're kind of using different versions here, right? So this is technically a red-yellow. And some places we've got the pink, the red really desaturated, and then some places we've got it stronger, and some places the yellow is really bright, and in others it's being used to do the bronze, right? Yeah, exactly right, boy. Like, everybody does it a little different, right? But yeah, I think... Let me check on the puppy. 1 second, guys. What you doing, Pop? Oh, you good girl? Oh, okay. I need to let her out real quick, guys. She's having diarrhea problems, so I don't want her to have an accident. So hold that thought. What do we got? We got half an hour left. Hold this thought. Chat around color, and I'll be right back. I just gotta make sure she's okay. Hey, Papa, I'll let you out. Yeah? Wanna go outside? Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, I need chicken though, don't I? Hold on. Gotta get chicken. 1 second. Settle down. Yep, she had a blowout. I'm going to be going to the vet after this. Quindy. Oh, I wanted to thank you, Quindy, for Agent, you can actually make blonde hair, a natural blonde hair with any yellow. It's all in what you mix with it. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't know, like, my other vet back in Texas, they must have had, like, a small lab on site or something where they could run stuff, and I miss that, because this vet always has to mail it out, and it's always the next day, and in the meantime, the dog is, like, keeping you up all night, right? Yeah. But at least I got a sample so I can... I'm pretty sure she just drank some bad water and now she's got coccidia or God knows what, and I just need to make sure that we can get some proper meds for her. But anyway. But yeah, Agent, it's like, if you mix a little bit of brown with any yellow and a little bit of white, you're going to have a decent blonde hair color. All right, let's get onto these rings. My paints are a little thick. Let me just add a little water. I was base coating with this color, and now I need it to actually, like, layer and mix. Yeah, I hope so too. This has been 2 nights of no sleep, Big Chimpo. Today, at least, I got a bit more sleep, so I felt like I could stream today. Yesterday was like just a wreck. She kept me up all night, and I just can't, like, grouchy and sleepy is not a good way to run a stream. So yeah, just doing a little bit of shading on these rings, and then I'll do a little highlighting and we'll be good. But yeah, that's Kiki. She just doesn't get that eating and drinking that stuff is gonna make her sick. So I'm starting to feel like we should, like, always be keeping a bit of, like, Albon in the house. But it sounds like I'm gonna have to weather another night of it while they run the lab tests, so we'll see if I manage to get... I already warned David, though. I'm just like, that's 2 nights in a row that I've been up in the middle of the night with the puppy. Tomorrow it's his turn. NMM Gold Shadow for the shadows. And yeah, you need to not use those colors straight up. Yeah, because NMM Gold Shadow is actually a good pick for shadows. Ogre Skin is way too yellow. You would have actually been better off if you would have used NMM Gold Highlight for all of the blonde hair. And then, maybe just did a little tiny bit of shading with a thinned down Ogre Skin. But even then, NMM Gold Highlight's a little too yellow. Blonde hair, if you look at it, is not strongly yellow. All right, I need to highlight those rings. Yes, dogs eat grass to make themselves puke to try to cleanse their system, Turgeon. So they're essentially trying to, like, essentially it's instinctual to try to make themselves barf up whatever it is they ate. Kiki eats grass, like, here and there, but she's not as big into it. Valendar, I missed Valendar's commentary. But yeah, never use an intense yellow. Or even an intense ochre for blonde hair. Modern Viking hairstyles. He just slept on it. That's funny. Silly cats. Yeah, I mean, a lot of old Norwegian hairstyles, like, I would look at period art, but you probably aren't going to find anything from, like, Old to Norse, right? Although I think braiding was common, but there's like any like art that like old art that might be existing, you might be able to extrapolate. Yep. Yep, mammals. It's actually like it's actually really two. It's black and red, and then variations on those or absence of those. So like the red pigment actually creates like the red of an Irish setter, but also the gold of a golden retriever. And then when it's almost never like when it's at its weakest, at its lightest, it gives you that cream color. Um, and then there's a gene that's E, that's white, and white is also yellow. So like the E gene gives you like that clear red or yellow or cream that like a yellow lab is E, but E in a shepherd is a white shepherd. So in some breeds it is yellow, and in some breeds it's white, and it's a recessive gene that essentially masks any underlying color. But yeah. Yeah, so you have essentially they call it the INT gene in shorthand. It's intensity gene. It essentially will tell you whether your dog's going to be a cream or yellow or a red. But yeah, Goldens have that gene. It's just the golden color was more popular, and so it's rarer to get the really red Goldens these days. Everybody seems to want a cream colored like white golden. That seems to be the fashion now. Which is sad. I like the actual golden retrievers. Uh-huh. Yeah, the thing to remember is just don't use yellow without mixing in some sort of brown or even purple. But I'll go into this. I'll be talking quite a bit about this when I do the mixing blonde hair from scratch. Because you do start with the yellow if you're mixing it from scratch, but you're adding a lot to it. But in general, though, that a lot of painters who are starting out trying to figure out blonde hair tend to go a little too yellow with it, or a lot too yellow with it. Some just use yellow. Just doing a little bit of highlighting here. I don't want to spend too much time on these rings. They really just need to highlight and be done. You need a yellow Riot Boy because the red, diluted red, it goes yellow. Like I said, the golden retriever. Like you, in our breed, the shepherds, we've got a reddish brown that goes to like a golden brown that goes to kind of a pale golden brown or a cream. So those are all the same gene, the phalomelanin, I think it is. But then there's black. And the black it shows up, but you can also have dilute black. So there's a gene that dilutes for liver, the liver colored, the brown Labrador Retriever. That's a black dilution gene that essentially takes black to brown. And then there's blue, right? Like Kerry Blue Terriers. Blue is a different dilution gene of black. So when that gene is present, it turns that kind of bluish grayish color. But both those genes act to dilute black. I'm a dog nut, so what? What's the problem? Woof, do you need to go out again? Oh my. Quinn, you might need to call the stream a little early today. My dog is looking at me and barking, but I'm going to kind of wait and see. No. It'll go pink. It'll go too pink, Riot Boy. Too pink. You want, yellow ochre is kind of the yellowy kind of gene. You really want to have both the yellow and the red. I would use red oxide or brown oxide. No, I already did, Shadow Raven. I called the vet this morning to arrange to bring in a fecal. Yeah, but you can't get that golden color without using a yellow of some sort. And yellow oxide is probably the most naturalistic yellow. All right, where am I? I'm trying to finish these rings so that we can at least do that. This has been a very all over the place stream. Lots of like questions, and I thought we'd finish the dang fish today, and it's like we haven't finished the fish. I'm blaming Kiki somewhat. The doglet. Shadow puppet show. Settle down, Kiki, please. Try to settle. She is getting really good at telling me when there's an emergency, but she's also still a puppy, so it's like I always have to question the premise and say, does she really need to go out or is she playing me? Yeah, red oxide plus white just gives you pink. It's kind of an orangey pink, but still pink. My dog is wandering around looking for a place to poop, probably, but oh well. What you doing, Ba? Can you settle down, please? Just for a couple minutes? Let mommy finish her stream, maybe? Okay, we'll get the back. Yeah, Papa, you settle down just for a second. What you got? Okay, she's settled. Good. I'll keep an eye on her, Quindy, and if I need to emergency run, I'll let you know. I think I'll probably take her to the vet with me just to get a weight on her. And to give her some experience at the vet. Because it's a new vet. Oh no, Quindy. Yeah, and using a tan color isn't far off from a blonde hair color, right? Just a little more yellow usually. But like you can take a color that's a tan that's like tanned leather 9031 and add white to that. Like use tan leather as a base coat, add white to it and build highlights and it will be a serviceable blonde. It won't be real golden. If you want a real golden blonde, then you glaze with yellow over the top of that. All right, we've got that, we've got that. We need to get the jewelry here. So help me God, I'm trying to get all this copper done. Not that anybody minds staring at Fishay for another stream, but I'd kind of really hoped to get him done today. We just got distracted today. We're very distractible today. But yeah, I'm thinking I'll run her over to the vet right after stream. That way I still have my afternoon to get work done. Hey guys, I almost finished doing all the edits on my book that I did on the proof copy. So pretty soon I get to re-upload the book for goods this time. No more edits. No more edits. So sick of editing the book. So sick of it. Cannot even tell you. It's got to be over 30 edits now. It's got to be. Along with several of those being intensive enough to count as rewrites. Some authors count all editing as rewrites. I think those authors probably go through all of their book when they do their edits, and that's why it counts that way. But, yeah. Oh, hey, Miniatures Den. And Denethor. Yeah, amber gold is a good midtone for blonde. Like I said, if you want it more golden than that, just put a glaze of a yellow over it, but real light, real light. Depends on how golden you want it. All right, we're getting this silly pouch figured out. Grey Wolf, I am hoping to have it, I mean, next week, it should be up by next week. Like, unless some weird, crazy thing happens, once this is done and then I get my novella edited, which shouldn't take very long because I'm done with it. Then it's just getting on the publishing sites and going and jumping through all the hoops and making sure my website works. You know, all those things. My to-do list is a single sheet of paper now. It's still a full sheet of paper, but it's a single sheet of paper. And then my book will finally be out. Then I can finally get to editing the second book. Get back to editing the second book. And y'all can read it. And if you've got a Kindle Unlimited, you'll be able to read it for free as part of your Kindle Unlimited. All right, a little bit of highlights here. Yeah, I might need to. Yeah, it's cool. 30 Skull Johnsons. I've been working on this book since 2011. I started writing it in 2011. I finished it in 2012. I started writing the second book then, and I finished that in like 2013, 14, and then life got crazy. I had a lot of surgeries, and I had a divorce, and I had all sorts of crazy stuff happen. So I was still working on the books, editing them during all that time, but things slowed down a lot for me. Life got a little weird and crazy for a while. So now I finally, since I moved out here to Cali, and I live with David, and we're married now, and I have a lot more stability. I finally put my head down and finally got the dang thing to the point where I could publish it. I did submit it to agents and had a couple that were interested, but nobody bit. So I was like, you know what? I kind of want to indie publish it better anyway, more. So that's what I'm going to do. So if you like adventure fantasy, like young adult fantasy based on Norwegian folk tales, this is your book. Oh, and it has foxes and bear kings and cool stuff. And trolls. It has trolls. Trolls are cool. Yeah, it's a little dull, but it's a good starting point if you're looking at, like, with the blonde hair. Let me see, I've got blonde hair here. Well, Palomino Gold's a good reference too, although it's a little too yellow, but you want it a little browner. I actually like to just look at hair, like actual people's, like, hair for examples. I don't know where I put my blonde hair. There it is. So yeah, blonde hair is here. You can see that it's golden, but it's definitely got brown in it. Trolls to your socks. Young adult fantasy miniatures. Done. Silly, silly. No, this, if you want that kind of fantasy, then this book is not for you. David and I were talking about that last night. Is like, he asked me how much sex and violence is in young adult fiction these days, and it's like, it's different, right? For some writers, they write a lot of it, and for other writers, they don't write it. And it's just your writing style, what kind of story you're telling, right? My stuff's pretty clean. I'm not writing a book about feet. That's funny. Yes, I'm afraid if any of you think that Luca is correct in what I'm writing, you're going to be very disappointed by my book. Go get yourself a good romance. All right, I'm pretty much done. I'm just like, I just want to be done. I just want to be done, Fishy. I'm sorry, Fishy. I just want to be done with you. Just want to be done with all the little details. Please, God. All right. Copper, done. Rings, done. Belt, done. Cage, done. Tooling on the leather, done. He only needs his base painted and like a little highlight on his leather. Maybe I can do the same. Maybe I can do the, it's not a like regular day if Quindy's not shaking her fist at Luca. Like, something's terribly wrong with the universe if Quindy is not shaking her fist at Luca. Okay, color wheel, go away. Not permanently, just a moment. And I want to highlight that leather. So let's grab an orange and black and brown. Broderick, I've got the camera. You can kind of see it. Like, let me see. Like, okay, I'm tapping it with my finger. It's right here. So it's right. If I go here, my nose is on it. So I've got this window pretty much right here where I can look down at the figure and paint. And then when you see me look up to here, I'm essentially double checking myself on the camera to see how it looks and to make sure I'm in frame. So this is a document cam, and it's got a relatively small foot as far as the camera goes. So it's not this big camera sitting here. It's not a DSLR or anything. It's just a document cam on a little arm. And so I can look at the mini. I have plenty of room to look at the mini and still have the document cam be right here. And I can get the model right up if I have autofocus. I actually could paint with the model really close to me if I wanted to, because this camera will focus this close. And I could get very, very close if I wanted to the model. And still not really have the camera be in the way. I messed around with a lot of stuff, and the document cams are just superior to anything else. Oh, that sounds tasty, Cornico. Miniature Stan. You're funny. Isn't there a test out there to find out if you're a person who can see extra colors? Like, some people have a lot of stuff going on in their eyes, and I'm not, by the way. I'm very good, but I'm not a superpower. I don't have superpower color sense. I wondered if I did. But there is a visual online test you can take to see if you can differentiate between colors to an extra level, essentially. Where's an orange? You can use any orange. Maybe I'll use a bit of sunrise and a bit of orange brown. I'll use orange brown and sunrise. These guys. Seeing extra colors. Yeah, you can with the right amount of chemicals. Some people are partially brine shrimp. I thought we were all partially brine shrimp. I thought that was DNA we all shared with brine shrimp. But we shouldn't publicize that, because brine shrimp, are very tasty for some creatures, and when the alien invaders come, they might decide that we're tasty because we're part brine shrimp, depending on what they are. All right, I'm just pop some oranges into this brown and man, it is clog-tastic day. It is the day of clogging everything. I have had to use the pokey tool so much today. It's very annoying. Alrighty. Pop some water in here. The dog is still being a good dog, mostly. Oh, mantis shrimp. Oh, you're right. Yes, so not brine shrimp. Although we probably do still share genes with them. So just going to mix a little bit of a brighter color. By the way, if you ever wondered what orange brown was for, it's definitely for highlighting leather, if you've got a dark brown leather. Yeah, little colored boxes, and you had to rearrange them. You'll try and find it. Cool, Quindy. Or cool, Cornico. Yeah, you remember what I mean, though. All right. I like to use oranges to highlight dark browns, just because it gives you that saturated dark leather. Oh, my puppy is restless again. Hopefully she's not making a mess while we... I have no idea. I don't dare give her another chew, because it's probably just gonna irritate her gut more. But when Kiki doesn't have things to chew, it's usually danger. Will Robinson. What are you doing out there, Pa? Uh-oh. Let me check. Oh no, she's being good. She's just chewing on something. Phew. I heard kind of this noise, and I'm like, oh, is she It kind of sounded let's just say. It sounded suspect. It sounded sus. My dog is completely distracting today. All right, I got focused too far in. There we go. Ah, we're probably still not focused. Boom. Happy Woman's Day. True facts about the mantis shrimp. It's true. We are dangerous when we haven't eaten in a while. I would say that you are correct. I'm just pretty much going to get the edges of this leather. Just because we want to put something on there. I'm not trying to spend a lot of time on it. I like to stipple the edges if it's going to be a worn leather to create a little texture. Some stippling can also just suggest a rough leather texture. I think I need a little bit of this plus white. Hangry, yeah. I will occasionally get hangry. Okay, there we go. So actually to show you guys the color this made, because it's pretty. So I was using black and brown plus orange brown. I did use a little sunrise orange, but it wasn't quite strong enough to shift the color. So I went to mostly orange brown. A couple brushfuls of this over, more orange brown, and then that over here, and added some Osirian sand and got that nice caramel color, which is lovely. Have fun in your meeting, Crowley. Alrighty. Just a little highlight and then a little extra highlight. There we go, focus. Alrighty, little bits of edges just to get out the get the details picked out on the edges of the leather. A little bit more on the edges. Leather usually wears to a lighter tan, so that's why I'm going for this kind of caramel golden color for the edges of this stuff, just to bring out details. And again, these details aren't super important, but they need a little bit of attention, so that's why we are giving them a little bit of texture. And then all Fishy needs is a base. And we are finally done. So the X-Rite color challenge and hue test. Thanks, thanks, Kiriniko. So yeah, if you want to know if you really have more in common with a mantis shrimp, go and take that. The X-Rite color challenge and hue test to see if you have extra stuff in your eyeballs that lets you see even more colors than normal humans. If you have color vision superpower. Maybe that's why you're like always like flabbergasted about what colors to use. You just see too many of them. All right, people. Oh, wait, the cork. I've got brown out. I should do the cork. Cork, cork, cork. Alrighty. And take the puppy for a quick walk and then take her to the vet. Ah, fishy! Yay, fishy! Yay, fishy. Alright, fishy is complete. All we need to do is do his base. So maybe we'll do a quick sand base maybe next time, or maybe I'll do it myself. I'll probably do it on stream and then we'll start a new model. So next time we run into fishy, or maybe one of these streams tomorrow or Friday, I'll rip out some of my new models that I just ordered from Reaper, and we will get you guys' feedback on what I should paint next. We have a couple of models we're finishing, so we need to choose the next couple. Denethor. Alrighty, yes, thank you everybody. Oh, interesting. That's really cool, Valendar. I wish I had. I probably would have been hopelessly confused if I actually had extra color cells, because I would have seen differences nobody else could see when I was making paints. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Fishy thanks you for hanging out on the stream with us today. Enjoy your Luca, as Miniatures Den is now ready to go. And I'm going to drag my dog out. You guys have fun, and I will see you, however sleepy I am, I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.